what difference this is going to mean to legal education in the country. And later, Amnesty International calls for what they describe as a purposeful enforcement of the reparatory justice for Africans in the wake of a UN resolution on slave trade. We have details of these plus business, sports in the next 1 hour. If you stay with us, my name is Grace Hammoah Agyemang. Details shortly. But before that, Christabel says Trevor has the latest with the news summaries. Christabel, talk to us.
The National Health Insurance Authority has reinforced its commitment to tackling kidney disease in Ghana, revealing that over 6,000 patients have received support under the National Health Insurance Scheme. This was disclosed at a public health forum held in Accra to mark World Kidney Month, where stakeholders highlighted the growing burden of kidney disease and the need for preventive action, early detection, and expanded access to treatment. The Chief Executive Officer for the National Health Insurance Authority, Dr. Victor Asare-Bampo, has urged the staff of the authority to handle the authority's resources diligently and maintain them for equity and service delivery. According to Dr. Bampo, the authority is deliberately investing in solutions that are sustainable, context-specific, and responsive to the realities of the ground. The First Lady of the Republic of Ghana, Lordina Mahama, has urged international leaders to prioritize child safety, arguing that digital technology presents both unprecedented opportunities and significant risks to young people worldwide. She was addressing the Fostering the Future Together Global Coalition Summit in Washington, D.C., where she thanked the U.S. First Lady, Melania Trump, for convening the gathering and shared a personal anecdote illustrating technology's dual nature. Finally, the Court of Arbitration for Sport has officially confirmed that it has received an appeal from the Senegalese Football Federation following the controversial decision to strip Senegal of the Africa Cup of Nations 2025 title. The appeal is directed against both the Confederation of African Football and the Royal Moroccan Football Federation after CAF ruled that Senegal had forfeited the final. The decision came after a walk-off incident during the decisive match, with Morocco subsequently declared 3-0 winners and crowned champions. And all these are on our website, 3news.com. I am Christabel Success Trevor. Grace, over to you.
Thank you, Christabel, for the news summaries. Let us now move into the details of the bulletin tonight, beginning from that violent clashes in Kwanta South in the Oti region, which has led into the death of 5 people. The development has caused the Inspector General of Police, IGP, to, as a matter of urgency, deploy heavy security reinforcement, including armored vehicles and personnel from the National Police Operations Unit to the area. The violence is linked to renewed ethnic tensions and a chieftaincy dispute causing instability in the Kwanta South municipality. The conflict has led to destruction, including report of houses being burned, causing residents to flee. It is not clear what sparked the latest round of violence, but police say 5 bodies have been recovered in the aftermath of the attack. Let's get some detail on this. And Joseph Awal Entry is Municipal Chief Executive of Nkwanta South. He's joining us on the phone for a conversation. Mr. Entry, thank you for your time tonight. Can you first confirm the current situation in Nkwanta South following these renewed clashes?
Well, good evening to you and your cherished listeners.
Right.
I would say for now, calm has been restored thanks to the quick response from the IGP, the Interior Minister, and then all stakeholders in the security apparatus. I would say things are a bit calm now, and security is tight currently in Nkwanta.
What briefing have you received so far regarding what led to this violence?
Well, it's not something new. It's been there since 2023. 2025, we try to engage the stakeholders, the chiefs, the opinion leaders, the youth in the peace building. We continue by bringing in National Peace Council to also come into the process. A lot have been put in place. But currently what we are experiencing is that people go to their farms and they get attacked in the farms. Some houses being attacked in some suburb of the community, that is Kerry, being burnt down. And just yesterday, a man and his 2 children went to farm and they were attacked and got burnt, as well as stretching from the farm to some part of the Nkwanta Township, which security measures were put in place as quick as early as possible to calm down the situation. So I would say now situations are calm, and we are on. As I'm speaking with you, security is on the foot. They are yet to give a briefing on what happened in the day. But I would say things are calm now.
Right, Mr. Enchi, which areas are the most affected areas, and the number of casualties and the extent of injuries so far?
Well, I would say the farm areas, because people are not able to go to their farms. In Nkwanta, the population out of 171.5% are farmers. So now you can't go to farm because you don't know what will happen. People go to farm and they are ambushed and shot and killed. So right now, as I'm speaking to you, it's very difficult for people to go to their farms. So this is what we are experiencing now. But thanks to IGP and the security apparatus, I would say with the early response and then the augmentation of the security services in Nkwanta, things are a bit calm now. We are still working around the clock to get more men to beef up with what we have as at now to take over the flashpoint and make sure people can live their life freely.
Are you satisfied with the current security reinforcements arrangements in the area? Do you think it can contain the situation?
Yes, for sure. With the presence of the deployment from IGP and then the military deployment that is coming, we are. I would think we are on course, and we are hoping to receive more so that we can augment and handle the issue as it's supposed to be handled. So I think for now, situations are being calmed. We are still following up the process to see to it that things will be calm and then the total peace will be restored for citizens.
Mr. Njiso, you are the MC for the area. You are, these are communal people that you know so much. Apart from the deployment of police, what more do you think we can do to bring all of these issues to an end? I know your area has been under curfew for 2 years and counting. What do you think? What more should we do, or what haven't we done to solve the situation?
Well, a lot of engagement have we started since 2025. We engage the youth, we engage the chiefs, we engage the opinion leaders, people who matter, to make sure we bring a lasting peace. So as I'm speaking to you, we're able to bring in Peace Council to also add up into the process to make sure the fueling factions will be called and then understand the reason why we need to have the peace. So there are a lot of process we are going through to make sure we get the peace. There are a lot of things, security things too, that are going on which I can't disclose. That is security matters. But there are a lot of engagement that we are doing, and we'll make sure we'll continue those engagements to make sure we get the lasting peace we want.
Before I let you go, do you intend to continue with the curfew after two years?
Well, the issue is that these incidents or these things don't happen in the night. So they happen in the daytime. So the security is still looking at things. Investigations are going on. When the need arises that there should be curfew, why not? We will follow you to make sure if that is what will help us restore peace. We will go by it. So there are a lot of investigations and underground work going on so that we'll find a lasting solution. But whatever the way, if that is what will solve the problem, we'll go by it and make sure Nkwanta gets its total peace as we all want.
Right. Mr. Nchi, thank you for talking to us. Indeed, we all want Nkwanta to get its total peace. We've been engaging Joseph Awal Entry. He is the Municipal Chief Executive of Nkwanta South. Let's just stay a bit longer on this and speak to Dr. Albert Young. He's a National Network Coordinator at West Africa Network for Peace Building, WANEP Ghana. Doc, thank you for your time tonight. For the past 2 years, curfew has been placed on this town. Yes, the conflict never seems to stop. What is your point of view on the current security situation?
Yeah, good evening. And first of all, let me say I'm a Mr. Probably just called me Albert Agyemang. This is something that has happened over the years. There have been clashes, recurrent ones, and there have also been interventions by both the government security agencies and also some civil society. And he was just acknowledging to the intervention by the Peace Council, which I am also aware. What I think that we have not been able to do is that usually our interventions are short-lived, and peace building requires a process that we need to follow through until the underlying causes are resolved. First of all, the dispute over the issues, for example, land, chieftaincy, have there been some conclusions on them? And that's where usually when they are not resolved and the population is reconciled, you would always have some of these recurring. And that's why probably despite the presence of security within the day, these things have occurred. Is synonymous with many conflicts, especially when we are in the rainy season, grasses are growing, and there are lonely people on the farms and paths to the farms. And I think that this is what is happening at the moment. And that requires a lot more expansion of the presence of the security and re-engagement on dialogue with the populations. It's unfortunate that some people have lost their lives at this time, and our condolences to those who have lost the families of those who have lost their lives. And we should continue to re-engage the people. And intelligence is very important at this moment. Who are those who probably got involved in these perpetrations? If the security apparatus, as we know they are present at the moment, are able to get to the bottom of to find out who are those who are doing this, get them through the due process of law.
Right.
Some of them will always serve as deterrent, but we need to re-engage quickly, the leaders of these parties who have reason to engage so that we can sustain the engagement. But we shouldn't end it there. We should make sure that at least there are resources available for the stakeholders who can intervene on this matter so that we get to a conclusion. Otherwise, we always have these things recurring.
So, Young, you mentioned that we should continue with engagement, but it has been going on for a while now. What should be the areas of the engagement? What areas should we be looking at while we're doing these engagements so that it sticks with the people and they come to buy into the sermon of peace that we preach during these engagements? It looks like the engagements are going on and yet people are still dying.
Yes, so there are land disputes. Some of the past incidents that we have had, the reports on relate to disputes over land boundaries and legitimacy and all that. There are also issues of chieftaincy succession, and the engagement dialogues need to identify what really are the reasons for the these disputes, and what concrete paths should be determined and agreed upon by the parties so that once there are agreements, commitments to those agreements, timelines are set, for them to follow through in the implementation of those agreements. Some parties might not be satisfied, but in terms of these kinds of engagements, once the agreements have been reached by the parties, it is important that there is now follow-through, implementation, and monitoring of such agreements so that we do not have these things recurring. Otherwise, and we've seen it happen in several jurisdictions, traditional jurisdictions across the country, that very often parties will always have these incidences recurring despite enough deployment, maybe sufficient deployment of security, despite the imposition of curfews. Once the issues have not been resolved, we will always have these things. And even when they are resolved, we need to reconcile the populations, the parties. Otherwise, some people will still have reason to engage in violence because the pent-up feelings usually will remain with the people. Some might agree on the surface, but still unsatisfied about the outcomes of, some of these engagements or processes that might have been deployed.
Right.
Managing the conflict.
So this area we talk about has been under curfew for the past 2 years. We know that the IGP has also deployed his men to the area. What other security approaches or interventions should we be looking at in trying to bring the area under control? 2 years of curfew, should it continue or there should be a review? What changes security-wise do we need?
If probably the intelligence, that they might gather would mean that there is a review of the curfew so that it is stringent enough to prevent some of these actions, that should be it. The other thing is that it's kind of difficult at this moment when there are kind of sniper attacks along the paths, lonely areas where individuals are attacked on farms and all that. It's usually very difficult, and that's where there is a need for a lot more expansion in terms of intelligence gathering, so that if there are miscreants, people who are probably having a semblance of, or the potential to engage in violence, killings and all that, all these people should be brought should be arrested and taken through the due process of law, or even maybe if they know that the security is trailing them and is aware of their potentials, they may be deterred from engaging in actual violence. So that's one. The other thing is trying to unite the populations, to let them have reasons not to engage in violence, so that everyone serves as a monitor of the community, and they open up, conversations. Very often when people don't talk, and it's only probably the leadership of these conflict parties are the ones talking, the conversation doesn't go down to the rest of the population. So it's also important to engage the rest of the populations on what do you call non-violence approaches, conflict sensitivity and all that, so that they know that when certain things are happening, it is likely that there is a potential for violence to occur or somebody to engage in violence. So early warning on the ground is very important, and this should involve members from the parties and some other neutral persons, so that they can complement the efforts of the security in terms of intelligence gathering. That would be very important.
Mr. Agyemang, thank you for talking to us tonight. Albert Agyemang, he's been talking to us about what more we can do to bring peace to Nkwanta. He is the National Network Coordinator at West Africa Network for Peace Building, WANEP Ghana. This is the Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. If you have interest in pursuing a law education in Ghana, or you want to become a lawyer, my next story will be of utmost importance to you, because Parliament has passed the Legal Education Reform Bill 2025 in a landmark move that ends the monopoly of the Ghana School of Law as a sole provider of professional legal training in the country. The bill, which received bipartisan support, seeks to expand access to legal education by allowing accredited public and private universities to offer professional law programs. It also establishes a council for legal education and training to regulate the sector, set standards, and oversee curriculum development. A key feature of the reform is the introduction of a law practice training course to be run by accredited institutions. They can also focus on practical, skills-based training and prepare candidates for a newly introduced national bar examination. Under the new system, holders of an LLB or other approved law degrees must complete the training course before qualifying to sit the bar exam. Here's Attorney General and Minister for Justice, Dr. Dominic Ayeni, moving the motion for the bill to be read the third time and passed.
Right Honourable Speaker, I beg to move that, notwithstanding the provision of Order 172, Sub-Order 1 of the Standing Orders, which requires that when a bill has passed through the consideration stage, the third reading thereof shall not be taken until at least one sitting day has elapsed. The motion for the third reading of the Legal Education Bill 2025 may be moved now. I so move.
Honourable members, motion ably moved. Any seconder?
Speaker, I rise to second the motion.
Motion moved and seconded. It is for the consideration of the House. This is a procedural motion. I will therefore put a question. As many as are in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Now, consequential motion number 20, Attorney General and Minister for Justice. You have the floor.
Right Honourable Speaker, I beg to move that the Legal Education Reform Bill 2025 be now read the
consideration of the House. I'll put a question. As many as are in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Those against say no. Honourable members, the ayes have it. The motion is adopted.
An act to establish the Council for Legal Education and Training to regulate legal education in the country, provide the curriculum and standards for legal education, and provide for related matters.
Members, that the Legal Education Bill 2026 is duly read for the third time and accordingly passed.
Indeed, motion for the bill has to be read third time and passed. But though the Majority Leader Hammoah Agyemang and Minority Leader Alexander Penyumakin lauded the passage of the bill, we can listen to them.
Mr. Speaker, let me thank colleagues for their industry and the work, the diligent work that they have done to ensure the enactment of this bill. Mr. Speaker, let me also congratulate the Attorney General and Minister for Justice for bringing the bill and successfully shepherding the bill through to the point of enactment. Mr. Speaker, this was a major campaign promise of the National Democratic Congress. And as has been typical of the National Democratic Congress, promises made are delivered. We've made promises and we are delivering on those promises. We promised law students that if they voted for us, we will carry out reforms that will ensure equity, fairness, and access to legal education. We have today successfully passed the bill. We believe that this is the dawn of a new era, where all students will be fairly treated. Whichever law school you go to, whichever law faculty you attend, all of us would end at the doors of the National Bar Examination. All of us, whether you went to Legon, or you went to UDS, or you went to UCC, or you went to Winneba, wherever you went to law school, we will all end at the same place, which is the National Bar Examination. And it is there that lawyers will be determined. This is a promise that the NDC made, and we have kept the promise, and we want all to witness that we have kept the promise. Mr. Speaker, let me conclude by once again congratulating the Attorney General and Minister for Justice for bringing the bill expeditiously to this House.
I've participated. This is not a bill that identified with a particular party. I concede, indeed, that they made it a campaign promise. I concede. And I'm happy that as leader of the House, he is sharing the success story of his government. What else can a leader say when he has succeeded in making sure a thing like this has happened. Mr. Speaker, however, they equally promised that there will be women banking. Mr. Speaker, that they were going to set up a bank for women. Mr. Speaker, we're done with year 1. Year 2, we have not seen the women bank. 2 have participated. This is not a bill that identified with a particular party. I concede, indeed, that they made it a campaign promise.
So you earlier heard the Majority Leader Hammoah Agyemang and then Minority Leader Alexander Apenyo Markings. This is still Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. But let's just stay in Parliament, where the minority today is raising concerns over what it describes as a potential conflict of interest involving President Mahama and his brother Ibrahim Mahama, particularly in relation to the latter's reported interest in acquiring the Damang mine. The president's brother is currently bidding to acquire Ghana's most commercially significant gold mine, the Damang mine, and the ranking member on the Lands and Natural Resources Committee of Parliament, Kwaku Amprechum, says the development raises concerns about conflict of interest. He addressed the media today.
Happened at once. Is watching the Damang gold mine being arranged for the president's brother. And it is watching that the same brother's private jet carried the president on official state visits, free of charge, we are told, while his companies accumulate hundreds of millions of dollars in state-linked contracts. These are not separate stories. They are the same story. They share an author, a beneficiary, and a constitutional problem. Taken together, we present the most serious conflict of interest question to confront any Ghanaian presidency since the Republic was born. The minority on the Parliamentary Committee of Lands and Natural Resources has reviewed the ministry's latest press statement, which we see is a reaction to the presser we did last week on the Damang mine. The government's own admission in broadcast media and the documented sequence of events at Damang. What we find is not ambiguity. It is a blueprint for capture, written in 2 hands, but serving one family. This we find to be an admission for development that is unacceptable. In the use of the president's brother's jet, as we speak, we don't know how much the state is paying. The government stated arrangements is as follows. The state pays.
You had the ranking on the Lands and Natural Resources Committee of Parliament, Kwaku Amprechum. They're moving away from Parliament. Amnesty International is calling for what they describe as a purposeful enforcement of the reparatory justice for Africans. The call follows a vote in which 123 countries backed Africa's call for reparations over the historical injustices of slavery. Board chair of Amnesty International Ghana chapter says the countries must meaningfully and voluntarily support the implementation.
Accountability, the first step is to recognize that the slave trade shouldn't have actually happened. The second is to put in mechanisms to, one, apologize to Africa and people of African descent. And then the next stage is to look at reparatory mechanisms. We need to compensate Africa and people of African descent for the excruciating trauma they took us through. And this mechanism should be such that it should be meaningful and people should actually participate from their own point of view. It shouldn't be these countries deciding on what they want to do as a form of reparation to us. It should be a collective discussion as to what should constitute reparation to the people of Africa and the people of African descent. So that's what we are looking at. So the recognition is very important, but it shouldn't be just recognition.
It shouldn't be just recognition.
Beyond the recognition. From the conversations leading to the voting, we were not surprised that it happened that way. But for us, we believe that international effort to confront legacy of slavery require collective commitment and moral leadership from all states. So when countries, for instance, decide not to vote in favor, the disagreement actually stems from legal responsibility, reparations, or interpretation of international law. At no point have they said that slave trade did not cause suffering to people of Africa and people of African descent. So there has not been any denial to that effect. Regrettably, we least expected countries like the UK and the European Union that have actually taken the position of as champions of human rights, championing human rights and defining human rights to abstain from this important conversation.
According to historian Kwaku Dako Ankra, the recognition of the crime is the beginning of the way forward for enforcement.
In terms of enforcement, one of the things is that the countries ought to agree that such a thing happened. And if that agreement comes, then the way forward will be clearer. Because one of the things is that the Europeans, in as much as they are not denying, they do not want to be actually be seen to have that moral guilt as well as also come in form of financial compensation for this dastardly act that was done in the past. But what it is they have to agree because there is a history of reparation. Fortunately, where the Jews were able to mount a massive defense for what was done to them during the Jewish Holocaust. And as a result, the German government sort of paid them for their suffering.
Well, the General Secretary of the Socialist Forum, Kwesi Pratt, has, however, criticized some countries, including Israel, for failing to support Africa in recent votes on the reparation for slavery. He described their position as unfair and urged African nations to reassess their diplomatic and economic relations with such countries.
But the transatlantic slave trade is the gravest crime against humanity ever committed. That's a significant moment in our history. And we who have gathered here today ought to understand the full implication of that declaration in the UN General Assembly yesterday. One thing is clear, the lines were clearly drawn between those who carried out that inhuman trade, who profited from it, whose institutions continue to be built on that inhuman, illegal trade. They were on one side, and we were on another side. African trade unions have expressed solidarity with the Palestinian people, against whom Israel is committing a genocide. Yesterday, the lines were drawn. Israel was not on our side. Our solidarity with the people of Palestine, our solidarity with the people of Venezuela, our solidarity with the people of Cuba must be intensified for our collective prosperity.
You have been listening to the General Secretary of the Socialist Forum, Kwesi Pratt. It's now time for us to have a conversation with the man I describe as the right person for this conversation, having served as a former senior governance advisor to the United Nations. Professor Hammoah Agyemang is on the line with us. Prof, thank you for your time tonight. A total of 123 countries backed Africa's call for reparations. How significant is this vote in practical terms, Prof?
Well, thank you for having me. First, let me say that I would like to applaud President Hammoah, our president, for leading this charge. Once the AU gave him the mandate to lead this agenda, I think he's executed very beautifully, and I applaud him for that. Look, this is a very significant moment in the life of Africans generally, all of us, those in the diaspora and everywhere else, and for people everywhere, because the transatlantic slave trade, as we know in history, came at a time when human civilization was moving forward. Then these Europeans and Americans were able to utilize human beings in advancing their progress. In fact, if it wasn't for slavery, perhaps the industrialization that occurred in the Western world, so to speak, could not have happened the way it did. Because as you know, at that time, there weren't heavy machinery to move things, to dig holes, to do all kinds of things that today machines are doing. And they utilized the human power of Africans who were sold into slavery to do that. And what is worse is that they treated them not as human beings. If you know the history of slavery. So if today the world had decided to acknowledge this criminal act, I think we have to be happy.
Right.
It is unfortunate, but it didn't surprise me a bit. When 3 countries, the United States, Israel, and Argentina, decided to vote against this resolution at the General Assembly. Because as you know, in fact today, I couldn't believe if the Americans had supported it, knowing what the President of the United States is doing to black history in his own country. And I think President Hammoah alluded to that in his speech. When in fact, the government of the United States has ordered the removal from their history books, their textbooks, from their exhibition halls, their museums, any artifacts or any semblance of reflecting the true nature of slavery in their country. So I think this is a moment that we have to cherish.
Right.
But I'm also, yes. Sorry.
Prof, so these calls for reparation, realistically, what forms do these reparations take? Is it financial compensation, debt relief, institutional reforms, or something else? And looking at where Africa is now in terms of civilization and development, what could be the best form of reparation for us? It's not as if it's coming to just one country or the African countries that were affected.
In fact, this is an excellent question. And it's an issue that has not gotten any consensus on how, if in fact the Western were to pay the where that go, how it's utilized and all. There's been very intense debate over that. And frankly, I don't have the answer as such. But I know that given the burden of indebtedness that African countries have to the West, it could be easily used to write off the billions of dollars that we will. This is my own thinking.
Right.
It can also be directed to introduce some serious infrastructure on the continent. We've been talking about maybe a railway from Johannesburg to Cairo, from Senegal to Addis Ababa. That is to say, cross-continental infrastructure like that. We also have this long-standing plan of building the greatest dam in the world on the Congo, which will have the capacity to supply all of Africa with hydropower. So there are certain projects. If African countries, their leaders can agree, we can decide to channel that amount into such a project that will be beneficial for all of Africa. But as I say, that decision is yet to be made, and that will be the most challenging part. It will test the unity of African people, African leaders on the continent. So we are yet to see first if the Western world will accede to the demand for reparation.
Right.
So that is number one. Once they say yes, then we can quickly also discuss and agree on how to utilize that amount, whether to be a form of a cash giveaway or investment in certain, as I said, continent-wide projects or anything of the sort that can spur Africa's rapid development.
Prof, Amnesty International is calling for what they describe as a purposeful enforcement of reparatory justice. What would a meaningful implementation of this actually look like?
Oh, it's not an easy task. it is not an easy task. As you know, the European countries they didn't vote against it. They simply abstained, and they gave the reason that if we make this one a crime against humanity, there could be future crimes that because we are making it the greatest crime against humanity, right? And there could be other crimes in the future that may come to the same kind of level. And how do we define that? I think they were simply using language to camouflage their own decision not to support the resolution. But the thing is that it's going to be difficult to find out how this. I'm getting some disturbances here. Sorry. Yes, I was saying that it's going to be difficult to figure out how exactly the donors, in this case, those who may be willing to pay the reparation, and where they would like it to be applied. You know, there is another argument that, in fact, Africans also we also complicit in the whole trade because we were party to get the slaves to them. But that argument is also there. But I don't think that stands tall to really compete with the more powerful argument of those who deliberately perpetrated that particular trade to their advantage. It was a gain for them because, as I said earlier, if it wasn't for the slaves, for instance, and the sterilization that took place in the Western world, could have been delayed 1,000.
Yeah. And Prof, the General Secretary of the Socialist Forum, Kwesi Pratt, he says that Africans must now assess their relations with some countries who especially didn't support the vote or abstained. Do you think that is a practical or effective strategy? Are we doing an eye for an eye now?
Oh, no, I think it sounds very interesting, but certainly it's not practical. Look, Africa is basically in a very serious dependent relationship with the Western world. And that dependency constrains certain things perhaps we could do because somehow, unfortunately, we still do need the cooperation of these countries for our own well-being. So in that respect, we cannot play a game of an eye for an eye, as you suggested. But I think we can unleash a very strong diplomatic forays. You know, Africa has certain elements, natural resources that we can use as a leverage. You know, making some demands. As you know, there are so-called critical minerals that are plentiful in Africa that all the Western nations need for their own technological development. And if we can then identify these kinds of minerals, they can become a leverage for us to negotiate for what we want. So I think there are ways we can as a continent. The only problem right now is that Africa unity is far away. If we're united, it will mean that we will have a stronger base to also make demands on the international system to get what.
Right. Prof, so let me take you a bit back in time to the days where you were the senior governance advisor to the UN. You have a paper on your table that says there's been a vote to adopt this declaration, slave trade as the gravest crime against humanity. What would have been your advice to the country that is asking for reparation and your advice to the receiver and the person that is also asking for this reparation?
My advice would be straightforward. First, we welcome and thank those nations that voted for that resolution. Secondly, we have to move the next step, which is to this is just a resolution. It doesn't commit any country to do anything yet. Once the resolution is passed, is the first step. The next step is how we get them. Those who are supportive, how do we then begin to mobilize the nature of the compensation? Because as you know, as we speak, we are not very sure about the nature of the compensation we are seeking, the reparation that we are seeking. Now we have to go to the table, back to the table, to define exactly the nature of the reparation that we are asking for. Then, of course, once you know the nature, then we will have to determine how to apply. So it's not a matter that is ending now. It could drag for the next decades. As you know, the potential payers will hesitate because it's going to be a huge amount in the billions of dollars if we have to put monetary term on it. So it's not an easy one, but I think we've made the first step, the recognition that it's a crime against humanity.
And you say, Prof, and you say Africa could wait to as long as a decade before we receive anything from the slave masters?
It depends on how the AU structures this agenda. Now that our President Mahama has successfully led the process to get the approval of the world through the United Nations, the next challenge is what should we do? The AU apparently is driving this process. Ghana just we're lucky to have taken the leadership role in the process. We have done our bit now by getting the UN to get the resolution passed. So the next level is, what is the AU going to do? Is it now going to form a new committee, as they usually will do, or how are we going to approach it? Are we going to engage the European Union separately from the other countries? So it's a very complex issue, I have to say. But I think we have gained the moral high ground now with this victory at the General Assembly. Now the issue is on the table, it's public, no qualms about that. And now taking the next step is going to be a real challenge. As I said, this can drag for the next decade or so, depending on how aggressive the AU will be in pushing this agenda on the global agenda. Right now, is not part of the global agenda of the United Nations. The resolution is passed, they have a job to make sure this resolution becomes an agenda of the UN as a body.
Right.
So that it doesn't become parochial, that doesn't remain parochial. Then we can begin to see how the world will react and how they will support or not support the process.
Okay. Prof, let me ask you this on the lighter note. It would have been a very busy time for you if you were still senior governance advisor to the UN. Do you miss the time?
I'm just happy that this thing has occurred in my lifetime because it is an issue that started in the early 1900s. You know, the black movement. This guy who introduced the Black Star shipping agency, so unfortunately his name escapes me, he decided to get all the blacks from America back to Africa, the Back to Africa movement. That is when this thing started because he demanded reparation for slavery. So it's not a new issue, you know. And even, when our former president, Akufo-Addo, was in power,
right, he also began, Yes,
in fact, he laid the foundation, so to speak. And I'm happy that President Mahama succeeded him and he has carried it forward to this level. So Ghana has been, in that respect, has been a champion of African liberation for a long time. So this really has become more or less the icing on the cake.
Yes.
But we have to also respect those who started this in the early 1900s with the movement back to Africa and all that. I think this is a long-standing issue. That for the first time, the world has been told and they have recognized for at least putting this on the agenda of the Assembly.
Prof, thank you so much for talking to us. It's been an enlightening conversation with you, and we appreciate your time on the program. Professor Bafo Agyemang is a former senior governance advisor to the United Nations, talking to us about the call for Operation Justice, what Africa needs to do so that we don't miss out on anything. This is Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. We go for a breather, and then Bismarck Awisa will bring us the latest in the world of business.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to the business segment on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7 with me, Bismarck Awisa. Coming up tonight, Ghana records trillion cedis fintech transaction value in 2024, emerging as regional fintech powerhouse as transaction values triple GDP. Thanks for your company. Now to the details. Ghana has officially solidified its position as a premier digital finance hub in West Africa. According to a joint report by Tech in Ghana and the GSMA, the nation's fintech sector recorded a staggering 3 trillion Ghana cedis, approximately $264 billion in total transaction values in 2024. This figure is particularly significant as it represents more than 3 times Ghana's nominal GDP for the year, signaling a profound shift toward a digital-first economy. There is more in the following 3 business news desk reports.
The report, titled Driving Digital Transformation of the Economy in Ghana, highlights a dramatic rise in financial access. Over 81% of Ghanaian adults now own a financial services account, a figure that dwarfs the sub-Saharan African average of less than 60%. This surge is largely attributed to mobile money, which has become the primary financial tool for both urban and rural populations. Despite leading in account ownership, the report notes that Ghana still lags behind some regional peers in specific digital inclusion metrics, suggesting that the ecosystem is far from reaching its ceiling. In Ghana, 44% of the adult population lives within reach of a mobile broadband signal but does not actively use the internet. This is slightly higher than the regional average of 42%. The report identifies 2 primary bottlenecks preventing millions from joining the digital economy. The high cost of smartphones remains the single largest barrier for the average citizen. A lack of technical skills limits how effectively individuals can navigate and trust digital platforms. The report observes that local startups are increasingly leveraging online platforms to scale operations internationally, connecting with global customer bases from their headquarters in Accra and Kumasi. The report concludes that targeted policy interventions, such as spectrum reforms and incentives for affordable devices, will be essential to maximizing the benefits of digitalization for job creation and national economic growth.
And that was a 3 business news desk report on Ghana recording 3 trillion cedis fintech transaction value in 2024, emerging as regional fintech powerhouse as transaction values triple GDP. Meanwhile, Ghana's fintech ecosystem continues its rapid ascent, securing $121 million in startup funding in 2024, according to a joint report by Tech in Ghana and the GSMA. The report highlights a sophisticated landscape anchored by 25.3 million mobile money accounts, which processed a staggering 3 trillion cedis across 8.1 billion transactions last year. Supported by 87 innovation hubs and proactive Bank of Ghana reforms, the nation now boasts an 81% financial inclusion rate, far surpassing the regional average of 60%. While mobile money remains the primary engine for growth, the report credits high-level interoperability and a collaborative network of banks and global partners for sustaining this momentum. Experts suggest that continued policy consistency will be the secret sauce to unlocking the next phase of Ghana's digital economy. And that brings us to the end of the business segment on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7 with me, Bismarck. Also, for more business stories, please check out our website, 3news.com. Thanks for your company.
normal routine? Need a break from the stress and chaos of everyday life? Well, step into the 3 Lounge, your world of absolute relaxation and great music with yours truly, AJ Akwako Sapon. Welcome to the best mid-morning show in the capital and beyond. This is 3 Lounge with yours truly, your radio princess, AJ Akwako Sapon.
Love it. I love it. It's great.
Kickstart your week with Monday motivation. Shake off the Tuesday blues and get ready for midweek mania. Take a trip down memory lane on Throwback Thursday and wrap up the week with Funky Friday with conversation, engaging discussions on topics that matter, and there's a boatload of fun and easy activations that reward and appreciate you, our loyal listener.
If you are listening, we're manifesting money into your pocket this morning.
Don't miss out on the excitement. Tune in to 3 Lounge every weekday morning from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. with AJ Akwako Sapon only on 3FM 92.7.
It's my number one.
92.7 3FM, your urban lifestyle radio.
Hello, good evening and welcome to the sports segment here on 3FM 92.7 with me, Andrew Sefa Bamfo. Let's start off from the camp of the Black Stars because Black Stars head coach Otto Addo has spoken before Ghana's game against Austria, which is scheduled for tomorrow. The game will be taking place in Austria. The Black Stars will be preparing for the 2026 World Cup. Otto Addo has spoken. He says that he is unfazed by the test that Austria provide despite having a good team.
Modern days football, to be honest, everyone can beat everyone. I'm very, very sure, and I think we saw it at the last World Cup that there's no team to be underrated, and surely Germany is a high profile, but to be honest, I'm not thinking about Germany now. So for us, it's the full focus on Austria. We want to win every match we play, this is for sure. And now the full focus is on Austria. We saw what they do, we analyzed them well, and I'm very, very hopeful that the players will do it at the end. It's about them, and the focus on Austria, we know what to do. We now have to execute, and like I said, it will be an intense game, and this is what we're looking up to. And after the match, we will think about Germany.
And so that was Black Stars head coach Otto Addo speaking ahead of Ghana's game against Austria. Let's still stay on that game because Black Stars captain and Jordan Ayew has also spoken ahead of the game. He says that the Black Stars are ready to take on Austria.
We want to play for our country, we want to do well for our country, so every game is important. Even though we know these 2 games are really important, but even previously the other games were important as well, but just that sometimes it is what it is, you know. Coming to these 2 games, listen, tomorrow is going to be a tough game, Monday will be a tough game, so we'll do our best. I think we are preparing really well, you know, tactically, technically, physically, we're really good, so let's see what happens tomorrow. I don't want to talk too much because obviously we've had a couple of days of training and what I've seen is positive, so we're ready for tomorrow, and we'll see if we can get a positive result because we want to get a positive result, and after Monday will take care of itself.
And so that was Black Stars captain Jordan Ayew speaking ahead of Ghana's game against Austria. Remember that the game will be live on TV3. And on your TV. That's all for the sports segment here on Hot Edition. The news continues right after this.
So that was Bismarck passing through with business, and Andrew's also bringing us the latest in the world of sports. That is it for our bulletin tonight. Thank you for joining us. You can also log on to 3news.com and get some more stories. My name is Grace Hammoah Agyemang. But don't forget that on Saturday, we are all going to the 3FM Gobe Festival. We are going to eat some good gobe at the Legon City Mall. You don't want to miss out on it. The event starts at exactly 8 a.m. Come and enjoy your gobe in any way that you want to enjoy it. Have fun, meet new friends, and also connect. I'm going to be there. All of us, in fact, are going to be there. Come and let's have fun. So that's it for Hot Edition. Thank you for joining us. Good evening.